While the last people join, I'll just start with announcing some of you will be aware that we, since last week, have had a few flaws somewhere in between WorkPoint and Microsoft communication. We have been working and are still working with Microsoft to solve this. So far we know that it's not our code that's wrong. Something else is wrong on probably in the platform. Microsoft is working on that. We were wondering whether we should go on with this webinar because of course this could affect the system, and this system will include a live demo, but we decided that it was more important to keep this running, and I've done a test this morning. I haven't seen any problems, so hopefully we will have a flawless demonstration. We'll see, but now you know. Just a little fresh up to all those human resource professionals out there. Human resource is one of those areas that everybody loves to hate, I'd say, and if you like to read Dilbert comic, there are a plethora of bad and good jokes about human resource. Anyway, there's no doubt that it's a very important field in most organizations that rely on reliable human resources, and of course we'll need a very good system to manage this as well. So what you'll see today is a way that you can use WorkPoint for managing your human resource. And in the solution I'm gonna show you is certain areas, jobs and job descriptions, job and openings, management of candidates and competences, and importantly the hiring process, and in fact also the opposite, the firing process or the resignation process if that's a situation, and the ability of manage the ongoing management and development of employees. We don't have the time to go through all the details, so this will be a somewhat high level walkthrough of the key features, but of course we're always happy to have information, have more dialogue with you afterwards. In the end there will be contact info for those who haven't got it. More than happy to answer questions further on, later on, and if you have additional queries. So with this, I'll just skip straight into our demo and show you the landing page of the WorkPoint Human Resource solution, the dashboard. Those of you familiar with WorkPoint, which I believe the majority of the audience is, you'll see a very familiar interface with My Tools, where you can create new elements, a template library if you're a super user, you have access to that, and a customized button for the organizational diagram. In the bottom, the usual menu with the WorkPoint modules. And for the human resource professionals, the dashboard will give some overview of what is going on. What do we have of the employees in each department of the company? Simply just a count of how many people are we, and in various areas. We have here competences which are linked to certain employees. We'll see more about that in a minute. On this middle section here, we have recruitments in process, we have resignations in process, we have any job ads that are about to expire, we have people with 10 or 25 years anniversary coming up, and below that we have any appraisals which are scheduled. To the right here we have overview of employees, candidates, jobs and interviews. So you can of course on each of these dashboards click down to any item you want to look on closer. Now, obviously, you also have the usual search facility where you can search in the modules or in the documents. For WorkPoint users, there's no news under the sun here. So let's have a closer look. We will choose this lady Lynn Garrett for an example. So clicking on Lynn Garrett will show us the site. Here is a WorkPoint site with the information about Lynn Garrett. She's an employee and she's currently employed, as we can see, no resignation, and everything is nice and steady here. We have basic data about her, we have the journal, and the content organized in the tabs where we can record, obviously, the normal contents, document, emails, and task and note relevant to Lynn, but also we have the ability to register absence, actions, specific actions, competences, which I mentioned before. We have, I believe, 2 competences laying here under under Lynn. Appraisals, which were scheduled on the front page as well, and you can build her resume by simply adding her previous jobs, title, position, job description, where she worked, how many years, etc. So you have a full overview of her of her past job history. Obviously, you can create all these things from the buttons up here. So that's how you have the overview of the individual employee, and you can, of course, also have this customized to your specific needs. Just jumping back on the front page. Those of you familiar with WorkPoint will think, all right, so where is WorkPoint Express? As you know, we have WorkPoint Express here, and we have the human resource solution I've connected to here. We can see that we just visited the employees module, and of course I could do the same thing here, find Lynn Garrett and see the element of Lynn. Now here you obviously also see the folder, the module structure where you have jobs, openings, recruitments, and candidates sitting underneath each other, and that is key to the recruitment process, which I'm going to display to you now. Stepping back, let's assume that we are in the market for a new nuclear power engineer. Oops, that was the jobs. I wanted to search in the jobs. Nuclear power engineer. We have here a job opening. And now we're in the jobs module. So the job site will show me the job description. I have a nuclear power, I require a new nuclear power engineer. I have the usual ability to add content to here, job description, etc. But more interesting, I have here the ability to create recruitments, or already existing employees are listed here. We have the nuclear power employees, nuclear power engineers employees, we have 2 so far, and we have a recruitment open with some information here. And again, this is a site, so let's go and have a look at the nuclear power engineer and see what that looks like. The job is active. We have a new recruitment with an ID, the job title, some description, and right now we're in the request. We want to have request, and if we change the stage, we can move to approved or on hold. Let's just move it to approved. So now we can start. Did I hit that? Something is, I forgot this. Approved by. That's the required fields that sometimes slips. As I warned you, a little slow response on the system, but now we're going. Approved for run with this recruitment. Now let's assume that we have a suitable candidate which are sending in an application. Let's go and find our recruitment. Nuclear power engineer was the one. Oops. Where we have so far 2 candidates. Now this gentleman have applied for something. It might not be the right fit, but let's try and create him anyway. I can simply take my email and drag it to the candidate and create the candidate straight from the email. Also here we have catered for the upcoming GDPR, so I can say, okay, does this contain personal data or no personal data, or specific sensitive personal data. Let's assume that he had included something that is very sensible in his applications, very likely. So we'll just create this gentleman. We might even choose a gender. We're not that modern that we have the ability for a 3rd or 4th gender, which is very up in time, but it's an easy fix, an easy customization if any of you have these requirements for your human resource system. Now let's create the site. There's a little slow response here. There we go. And now we have the process. Mr. Michael Buades is now being created as a candidate. We will see in our candidate list here that Mr. Buades is now being created in the system. Hopefully that won't take long. While we wait for that, we'll just go and have a look at the other candidates to see what do the sites look like. So when we have a candidate, we have the different stages: application received, candidate first, second interview, and either selected or rejected. Now note that you can choose to go from application received to candidate. You can go to first interview, but you have to go through candidate step before you can go to first interview. You can always go straight to rejected, but you can't go to selected unless you have been through the already planned steps of the hiring process. Now, what would be correct would be to acknowledge Mr. Buades that we have received his application. So hopefully the site has been created, hasn't. But what we can do, just for an example, we can send an email to any applicant using a template. Thank you for your application. And using the email template, which came on my second screen, would look like this. You just have to fill in the name of the applicant and your name. You have here your pre-made template for replying to the applicant. The reason we haven't merged these data into the mail is that it's only Word that supports that. Word and Excel supports that, but you still can't merge data directly into an email template. Anyway, we could send this off to Michael. We will just have a look here on the site. Now, obviously, when you have an applicant, you want to receive the application and decide whether you want to reject it or whether this is going to be a candidate. Creating a candidate would be the usual step of changing the stage. Here you can have also gender selection has not been made yet. Right, we'll make this a candidate. The stage will change. You can have the first interview. You can use the events to make an appointment with the candidate, This solution is not set up with the Outlook integration, but it could have been that you simply click a new event and you would have an Outlook meeting sent out to the candidate. When you have finished when you have the interview scheduled, obviously you will move to the next stage. And again, as I said, you cannot skip any of these fixed selections. You would have to either reject him or take him to the first interview. As you move along in this process, more fields will come up required. If you do the first interview, you'll have to set up an approval. I'll put myself in here as the approver. And when you have completed the first interview, obviously, you will have to make the decision again. Is there a need for a second interview, or would it be a rejection? Going to the second interview, you would have to again approve who made this approval. And when you finally get to the successful end of the second interview, you can then select the applicant, or of course still reject the applicant. Selecting this person would give you a few more things to fill in. You can have to approve date, but let's assume that this applicant was not successful. You will reject this person. You have to be a little more thorough. You have to have a reason for rejecting this person, and of course a reason internal for your internal notes, but also something that you can write out to the person in question. And here you can write something less sensible probably. And now you have completed the process. Mr. Christensen here was unfortunately rejected. Now you can again go back to your Outlook and write a new mail to Mr. In this case it was Tue, a new mail to to this person and tell him to that unfortunately he was unsuccessful in his application. Now we can see here that Mr. Buades is now, the site has now been created, so let's just revisit that. Under the nuclear power engineer, obviously he applied as a sales manager, so hiring him as a nuclear power engineer might be a little bit dangerous. So this, in this case, would probably unfortunately reject him right away and skip straight to the rejected due to a lack of qualification as a nuclear power engineer. So just jumping back to the dashboard, we had a few things that we didn't talk about yet. First of all, when you have all these jobs, you have the recruitment, the process, you can create jobs, you can create recruitments that you can have approved for before you can start working on them. You can then list your candidates under the recruitments, so you can run each of them through the approval, the interview process, hiring process. And when you finally have found your suitable candidate, you can then create the person as an employee in the employees list. And as you can see, the employees list, you can have multiple views of whether they're, which department they're in, whether they're in resigned, or whether the resignation, for example, is in progress. Just like you can with any other WorkPoint modules and lists. So each of the modules will have their quick views that you can have for your human resource employees. Last thing just want to mention is the ability to have a human resource diagram. Here you have a diagram of your organization, and you can drill down in each of these. As you can see, they are put on different pages, so you can very quickly skim through the structure of the diagram. or click down, drill down on them as you see fit. Obviously, in our template library, we have created all the relevant documents for the process. So you will have the ability to use appraisal forms for your appraisal meetings, data sheets for employees, employment contracts, job advertisement, etc. And as usual with the WorkPoint template library, they are only used in those fields where you where you really need them in the context. So we have here the applicant, and if you click on the document, you will see only the relevant templates, employment contract or rejection letter for this process. No news under the sun in terms of WorkPoint here. Just a little reminder for those of you who have forgot about it. Now, that was pretty much the overview of the human resource system. As you can see, there's a few things to dig into. If you have any specific needs or requirements, you can of course have this customized to fit your needs, but this is a quite strong starting point for any human resource organization that is lacking a proper system. So please feel free to contact us if you have any further question. We're ready to answer all questions that you might have. And with that, I'd like to say thank you for your attendance and have a good day.